Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Agam. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and you may have seen in the introduction, there's little bare bones in here. Don't worry, there's no need to fret. There's a little construction going on here. We're getting some new carpet, getting some upgrades. So you may hear some noise in the background, but do not worry. So we have, first of all, Big Wave from Wyoming. Thank you for that. Thank you for the comment as well. You'll be missed. We've got a couple of comments from yesterday's program that we either did not have an opportunity to read or came in after the broadcast. Later on in the show, and you're really going to enjoy this, we have an interview with GorillaBots, Team 5485. Now, what is that? It is a group of high school students from Corning, Elmira, Horseheads, that are attending the World Championship in Houston for robots. We're going to find out exactly what that means. We're going to find out exactly what it takes to be in robotics. And we're going to hear from them in the 7 o'clock hour. Really looking forward to that. Now, let's get to viewer comments. Trump should appoint the rhinos to ambassadors to third world countries so we could have special elections to replace them. Interesting concept. Thank you very much. Another comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning to you. I'm catching up. Got a late start this morning. But I have to tell Mark that he stole my Hochul question to President Trump if we had the opportunity to ask. And what that's in reference to, and yes, it was a very good question from Mark. But what it was in reference to is someone asked me if I was moved to the front of the press briefings as the legacy media is getting pushed back. What would I ask President Trump? So I turned the question around to you. And Mark asked, how do we get rid of Governor Hochul in New York State? So yes, that was a very good question. And I'll pose that question again. If you had something you could ask the president. Look at all these waves coming in. What would it be? Okay, comment from a different viewer. I didn't realize that we spend more money to defend Europe than they do. Have we really been that stupid? Thank God that President Trump and Musk are getting our government's priorities straightened out. It's about time that we are finally getting some representation with not only common sense, but who also have our best interest in mind and are not working to line their pockets with our tax dollars. Also, I see exactly what the Democrats are and will do. They keep using the lies that the Republicans are going to destroy Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. However, as you and I are all clear thinkers know, given the fact that the president has said that he will not compromise these programs, once it became clear that these programs have not been compromised, the Democrats will loudly claim that they had secured the integrity of these programs by standing up to Republicans and fighting for the American people. Bunch of losers and delusional lunatics. Well, and there's actually a protest, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the show, a protest going on this weekend. It's called like Keep Your Hands Off or something. I don't know where you get the information on all these protests that are going on. But it's, I believe, on Saturday, tomorrow, that they're having a protest suggesting, again, that the president or Musk or whoever is going after your Social Security or your Medicare or your Medicaid. That is just simply not the case. But that is a talking point that Democrats have historically used. Comment from a different viewer. Frank, the storms in Tennessee remind me that someone had told me, maybe it was before the California wildfires were realized, that the insurance companies canceled all their policies. Is that true? Not all the policies. There was a lot of controversy around that there are certain insurance companies that would no longer insure in kind of hot spots, or that it became so costly that people couldn't afford it. So yes, that was a major, major issue. One that got a lot of attention at first. I've not heard a lot more about it. Comment from a different viewer. Regarding the handouts that foreign countries have enjoyed that are no longer available to them. They're acting like a child who has received candy every day of its life, but once it is taken away, it throws a tantrum. Yes, I would say some of the statements from various quote-unquote leaders have sounded very much tantrum-like, and many in the media, as a matter of fact, and politicians in Washington, very tantrum-like. Comment from a different viewer. Oh, no, same viewer. Adding on to that, those countries that cry are only fair-weather friends and don't want to play fair. Thank you. Comment. We'll wrap up on this comment. Coming in late yesterday. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning to you. Ain't Donald a superhero? It's comforting to know how many ill-informed citizens voted for this loser. He'll have the whole darn country broke in another 6 months. This is absolutely pitiful. One thing I'll say about this comment, and we try to read all comments on all sides of the issue, even though I did have to say darn there instead of the word used. I will say one of the things this points to me, whatever you think of President Trump's policies, is calling the citizens ill-informed makes me think that perhaps lessons from November were not learned. It makes me think that perhaps the condescending nature of what we were being told before the election, the Trump supporters, the names that were being called, and the, such as Biden calling Trump supporters garbage, Mark Cuban saying there's no intelligent, strong women around Trump, these type of things. It just seems like not a lesson learned. That is not to be critical of that viewer in any way, but to call what is a landslide victory nothing but ill-informed citizens, just maybe something to reflect on as you say that, to maybe think about. Maybe there are some lessons to be learned from November. Okay, big news breaking late yesterday. Director of the National Security Agency, Air Force General Timothy Howe, was reportedly fired from his post as the head of the agency. Howes. I'm going to say Howes. How's that? I'm sorry, I've only read it. I have not heard it yet. Howes' removal as director of the NSA, the nation's primary cyber espionage and electronic eavesdropping agency, comes on the same day at least 3 White House National Security Council staffers were also reportedly shown the door. The ousted NSA director's civilian deputy, Wendy Noble, was also let go Thursday, according to the Washington Post, citing current and former U.S. officials. Noble was resigned to a role within the Pentagon's Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, according to the outlet. The reason behind the NSA shakeup is unknown, the U.S. officials told the outlet. Now, what is being claimed by some in the media, by most in the legacy media, is that it was Laura Loomer, conspiracy theorist, they always say, that she had Trump's ear and suggested this firing, and that Trump, listen, this coming from CNN, the White House has fired multiple administration officials, including at least 3 National Security Council staffers. The firings came after Laura Loomer, the far-right activist who once claimed 9/11 was an inside job, urged President Donald Trump during a Wednesday meeting to get rid of several members of his National Security Council staff, including his principal deputy national security advisor, claiming that they are disloyal. One of the sources said Loomer had compiled a list of roughly a dozen names, and that the subsequent firings were a direct result of the meeting with Loomer, who was an influential voice around Trump during the campaign. Again, this coming from CNN. Trump defended letting people go when talking to reporters aboard Air Force One, saying, always we're going to let go of people that we don't like, or people that we don't think can do the job, or people that may have loyalties to someone else. But he said Loomer was not involved in the firings, calling her a very good patriot. Principal Deputy National Security Advisor Alex Wong was not among those who had been dismissed on Wednesday. However, one White House official speculated that Wong could be out as soon as today, though a final decision remains to be seen. Wong was one of the advisors specifically targeted by Loomer, who publicly questioned his loyalty to Trump and criticized him privately as a never-Trumper. One of the sources speculated that National Security Advisor Michael Waltz may have been reluctant to fire Wong because he had been embroiled in the controversy surrounding that signal message. The three officials fired included Brian Walsh, a director for intelligence, and a former top staffer for now Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Thomason Boudry, a senior director for legislative affairs, who previously served as Walz's legislative director in Congress, and David Feith, a senior director overseeing technology and national security who served in the State Department during Trump's first administration. Brian Hughes said NSC doesn't comment on personnel matters. So depending on which outlet you go, they are saying it was Laura Loomer that made this decision essentially for Trump. It was Oliver Darcy who got the scoop about the meeting, and the New York Times shed further light on it, according to Mediaite. Ms. Loomer walked into the White House with a sheaf of papers which amounted to a mass of opposition research attacking the character and loyalty of numerous NSC officials, two of the people said. She proceeded to excoriate them in front of their boss, the National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz, who was also in the meeting. Mr. Trump may act on some of Ms. Loomer's recommendations, added the Times. But on Wednesday afternoon, Loomer sat with the president in the Oval Office, plying him with claims about staff members whom she insisted should be dismissed. The meeting came after a recent string of social media attacks by Ms. Loomer on Trump administration officials, including Alex Wong, as we mentioned. Mr. Waltz was already on shaky footing before the incident and now may lose the ability to protect his staff from dismissals, with several senior staff members potentially on the chopping block. Mr. Trump has spoken somewhat sympathetically about Mr. Wong in some of his private conversations with his advisors. So that's just a quick kind of breaking news story from overnight. We have a lot to talk about, not just at the federal level. We are going to talk about some local and statewide issues, specifically the New York State budget. We'll be talking about that. Some bills that Governor Hochul signed into law yesterday. We also have quite a few things here about DOGE as well. Yes, we are going to talk tariffs. Feel free to weigh in on the tariffs if you would like. And as I said, we are going to hear from the members of GorillaBots, that robotic team in the area, the local high school kids that are going to the World Championship in Houston. We look forward to talking with them a little bit later on. One quick thing before we take a break. I know it's early on, but I do want to highlight, and I didn't mention this on yesterday's program, but I would like to thank all the great people at the Corning Rotary Club. I got to have the opportunity, me and a group of friends got the opportunity to speak in front of the Rotary Club about our project regarding Dwayne Eddy and recognizing Dwayne Eddy. And I want to thank everyone for the warm welcome and really the interest. It was quite a crowd. The interest in hearing more about Dwayne Eddy and more about our plans here in Corning. To have something, part of me, that recognizes him. So I want to thank the Corning Rotary. Always a great group of people. Always fun when we get to talk to them. So I wanted to make sure that we didn't run out of time and that I had an opportunity to say that this morning. Okay, a lot more to talk about. When we come back, we're going to talk about that proxy vote. Kind of an interesting take from President Trump on the proxy vote yesterday. I'd like to know how does it change your opinion? Does it keep your opinion consistent? What would you think about this proxy vote? We'll tell you what Donald Trump had to say when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, a bare bones Hesselson studio, as we are getting a little work done. So if you hear any noise in the background, I apologize, but it is definitely bare bones. All right, let's go to viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Boy, the media is really highlighting that the stock market went down because of Trump's tariffs. They're scaring people, telling them there might be a depression. Yes, the media is full-throated on this. They are screaming from the rooftops for anyone that will listen to them. We're going to show you a couple examples of that later on. Your thoughts on tariffs in general, your thoughts on Liberation Day. I would love to hear them. First, I do want to, because this was quite a big topic yesterday and the day before, give you just an update. President Donald Trump said Thursday he is in favor of allowing new parents serving in the House of Representatives to vote remotely. Now, that's kind of a blow to Speaker Johnson, who's been fighting against this. Speaker Johnson shut down the House floor for the week after failing to block a resolution from Representative Anna Paulina Luna to allow new parents to proxy vote. But what's interesting, Trump did not go as far as to endorse Representative Luna's resolution. He said there are two sides. I'm going to let the speaker make the decision, but I like the idea of being able, if you're having a baby, I think you should be able to call in and vote. I'm in favor of that, but I understand some people aren't. I'm not involved in this issue. And this is exactly what we said yesterday, that on paper, it almost sounds like kind of a no-brainer issue. But then when you kind of do a deeper dive and you see how proxy votes were misused at the tail end of COVID, if you will, at the end of COVID, that it was Washington, well, let's put it this way. Those in Washington have a very good way, a very consistent way of gaming the system, of taking things too far. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, right? So where does this end? If one proxy vote is allowed, you can see where it will be misused, or more examples of proxy, like I think it was the New York Post had yesterday, that piece said, well, what if it's you're sick? Or what if it's you have to help a family member? Or, where does it end? That's kind of the idea. But Trump said, I don't know why it's controversial. I'm in favor of that, but I understand some people aren't. So does that change your position? I would still say, again, well, let me say with Trump, let me give you the rest of what Trump had to say. Trump indicated that he is not involved in the issue. She and some people feel strongly about it, and I would agree with them. I don't know why it's controversial. Well, I would just say, after having kind of, to use the leftist term, lived experience, right? I, having seen the proxy vote firsthand being misused in Washington, in my opinion, misused, and not legally misused, but being used by so many people who just wanted to go home early from Washington, wanted to get back home, or maybe they're on vacation, as the New York Post mentioned yesterday. There's so many examples of people doing proxy votes, just not wanting to go to Washington. And you think of all the hardships that the founders had and the early members of Congress to get to Washington. It just seems like proxy votes should not be allowed. This does seem like an instance, what Representative Luma is proposing seems like an interest that makes sense, and it does. It's about the fact that if you give Washington an inch, they'll take a mile, and where does it end? I think that's where the fight is. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it specifically. Also, as an update from yesterday, when the media was presenting it, and it's very clickbait-esque, that Musk is out, essentially out of Doge. Now, we all knew, because we are informed viewers, that a special government employee only by law has 130 days. So at the end of May, Elon Musk would have been out anyway. Does he want to leave a little bit earlier than that? Perhaps, and who could blame him? When you see the left firebombing Tesla dealerships, throwing Molotov cocktails consistently at these dealerships and at the charging stations, maybe he does want to take care of his business affairs as he looks at what he's doing, and rightfully doing, and Washington doing a great job, but obviously doing it in America's interest, but not helping him and his business interests, which is very important. So no one blames him. But President Trump was adamant that he wants Elon Musk to be part of his administration for as long as possible. I want Elon to stay as long as possible, he said on Air Force One. Number one, I like him. Number two, he's doing a great job. Number three, he is a patriot. And as that viewer had said that I read that comment from yesterday's program, not doing it to line their pockets. He's doing it like most people in Washington are in the job for. He's not doing it to line his pockets. He's doing it for the best interest of the country. And as I said, per federal regulations, a special government employee only has 130 consecutive days, which puts him at May 30th when he would have to leave. Trump continuing, saying, we're in no rush, but there will be a point in time in which Elon's going to have to leave, noting that he has companies to run. Though Trump noted that Musk is welcome to stay as long as he likes. When asked if he would consider appointing the world's richest man to a different post in order to keep him around longer, Trump responded, I would. I think Elon's great. He signaled that Doge's efforts to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in government would continue after Musk's exit, with the cabinet secretaries taking totally over and Doge staffers shifting to permanent positions inside federal agencies. We have a lot of smart people. A lot of those people, I believe, are going to go into the agencies and then work on it from the inside. He said, and then he kind of keeping people hooked on Doge. He said, Doge found something today that's horrible. It's horrible. You'll find out very soon. What they found is incredible, and we give Musk a lot of credit. He's got some very smart people. So there you are. Okay. Those are all kind of updates from stories we've been talking about all week. I do have a couple more. I have one quick one maybe we'll get to about Cory Booker. We definitely have to talk about the New York State budget. As I said a little bit later on in the program, we're going to talk to the team, GorillaBots, from the robotics team here locally that are going to the World Championship. I think you're really going to enjoy that interview. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. When we come back, yes, it's time to talk tariffs. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. It's time to talk tariffs. Obama and Kamala Harris publicly rebuked Trump's second-term actions, according to CNN. Obama sharply criticized Trump's efforts to reshape the federal government, crack down on immigration and dissent, and intimidate news outlets and the legal establishment. Obama said during an onstage interview at Hamilton College, so this is the first time I've been speaking publicly for a while. I've been watching for a little bit. Imagine if I had done any of this. It's unimaginable that the same parties that are silent now would have tolerated behavior like that from me or a whole bunch of my predecessors. Yeah, I know. You feel bad for Obama. He had it so tough. He had a media that was essentially in his back pocket praising everything he did. But now, years and years later, still complaining about apparently the treatment he received while he was president of the United States. What they call him, the coolest president. They treated him like a rock star or Hollywood star, but still after all these years complaining, imagine if I had done this. But he went on to say that he doesn't think Trump's new tariff announcement, quote, is going to be good for America. However, he said that he is more concerned with what he described as the White House's infringement on rights. Quote, I'm more deeply concerned with a federal government that threatens universities if they don't give up students who are exercising their right to free speech. The idea that a White House can say to law firms, if you represent parties that we don't like, we're going to pull all of our business or bar you from representing people effectively. That kind of behavior is contrary to the basic compact we have as Americans. Obama had previously warned of the dangers facing the country if Trump were reelected while campaigning for Harris during the final stretch of the presidential race. Okay. Now, in separate remarks, Kamala Harris said Trump's moves since he returned to office were largely predictable. She said on Thursday, there were many things we knew would happen. I'm not here to say I told you so, she added before her typical laugh that we're all familiar with. Harris said she recognizes that Trump's return to the Oval Office has created a great sense of fear. We are seeing organizations stay quiet. We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in the last few months in our country, and it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Now, earlier this week, Trump announced a deal with a law firm that employs former second gentleman Doug Emhoff, which the president said includes the firm agreeing to providing at least $100 million in pro bono legal services throughout his second term. It was another example of high-profile firms cutting deals with the White House as Trump has targeted firms that have done work with his perceived political enemies. Harris said, fear has a way of being contagious. When one person has fear, it has a way of spreading to those around them and spreading. Sounds like typical Harris. Let me read it again. When one person has fear, it has a way of spreading to those around them and spreading. And we witness that, no doubt. But I say this also, my dear friends, courage is also contagious. Former Vice President Kamala Harris. Okay. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Congress begins to dissent on these trade deals. And this is in reference to the vote in regards to the Canadian tariffs, where you had Rand Paul, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, all voting with the Democrats, because that, for some reason, always shows that you're a really good conservative. When you side with the Democrats, you vote with the Democrats for some reason. Speaking out, if you will, against, and obviously Donald Trump isn't going to sign the legislation, but speaking out against the tariffs on Canada. Well, the Wall Street Journal says Americans aren't feeling liberated by tariffs if they log into their retirement accounts this week, and voters may soon be sending anti-love letters to their representatives in Congress. So it's welcome news that even a few Republicans on Capitol Hill are registering at least some displeasure with Trump's tariff onslaught. Give Senator Paul credit for his floor speech that offered remedial economic trade education. He said tariffs are simply taxes. Tariffs don't punish foreign governments, they punish American families. When we tax imports, we raise the price of everything, from groceries to smartphones to washing machines to prescription drugs. Every dollar collected in tariff revenue comes straight out of the pockets of American consumers. So, again, and typically I like Rand Paul, but when you vote with all Democrats and then you get praised by the Wall Street Journal, do you believe that you are on the right side of an issue? I think that's a fair question to ask. Now, the Wall Street Journal will turn on Rand Paul in the future, but they also kind of turned quickly on his statement, saying we'd moderate that to say foreign producers might feel that they have to absorb some of the tariff costs to stay competitive. But he's right that American consumers will pay most of it. The senators are on especially firm political ground in opposing tariffs on products made by America's friendly neighbors, which we have a trade agreement. Preserving the long-term prosperity of American industry and workers requires working with our allies, not against them, said Senator Mitch McConnell. Congress could do the country a favor if it becomes jealous of its powers, or at least afraid of the political consequences that will accompany higher prices and slower economic growth. That old enforcer, Adam Smith, will provide his market discipline, but Republicans could help themselves if more of them spoke up. That's nice to have the media tell Republicans how they can help themselves after winning in a historic election in November. And as the trust in the media and the approval rating of Democrats are at all-time lows. So thank you for the advice. Appreciate it. When we come back, we do have, I think, kind of an interesting take on tariffs, and I would love to hear your thoughts on tariffs overall. I know the media right now is in kind of the mode of pushing doom and gloom even more than they normally do, but pushing it in the 24/7 news cycle nonstop. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, they don't like Trump, but they really want to, for lack of a better word, brainwash you, just like they try to do with saying that he's going to hurt Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, with the most damaging headlines they can give you, so that you run around all day being inundated with this negativity until you kind of buy into it or until you start to agree with it. Got a couple examples of that. We're not going to talk tariffs all morning. We've got quite a few other issues as well. We've got to get to the New York State budget. A lot to talk about there, and some other New York State issues as well. But right now, we got to take a short break. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. A little quiet on the comments this morning, but that's okay. Yesterday was jam-packed with comments. We had a lot to read even at the beginning of the program. But we will take this short break, and then we'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thank you to Boss Security for providing that beautiful view of historic Market Street. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Now you have me guessing what Doge has found that Trump didn't reveal. And I think, and this is Mark. Thank you, Mark. That's exactly what Trump wanted. But I know they are starting to investigate how some government officials got rich. Yeah, that would be interesting if it was in that line. But Trump, very good at that, keeping you guessing. The New York Post editorial board says if it's going to point a clear way to a better future, President Donald Trump's tariff push needs far better support from the White House staff than we saw in Wednesday's release of reciprocal tariff levies. How bad did it get? Well, Trump's long list included a 10% tariff on the Heard and McDonald Islands, Australian territories inhabited only by penguins. It quickly became obvious that the list of other nations' tariffs on American products boiled down to this formula: U.S. imports minus exports to give a given country, divided by imports, then divided by 2. That's it. And if the resulting number is lower, make the reciprocal U.S. tariff 10%, which has nothing to do with actual reciprocal tariffs, that is, with measuring the other country's tariffs and non-tariff barriers to U.S. goods. So Israel, which tried to beat Trump's announcement by zeroing out its tariffs, still got hit with a 17% rate. Vietnam, which drastically slashed its tariffs, still won a 46% rate. We're not free trade purists or doctrinate free marketers. We're up for any moves logically aimed at onshoring jobs and reviving, U.S. manufacturing, especially in industries crucial to national defense. But this is just head-scratching. A trade imbalance doesn't necessarily mean a country is taking advantage of us. It would be better to target the tariffs to the specific industries that the president wishes to rebuild. Again, families and businesses can prepare for some short-term pain. Nobody's suffering that much if Shein and the whole fast fashion fad hit a brick wall. Market chaos can be weathered too, but not long-term consumer, business, and voter uncertainty. We guess and hope the White House A-team is focused on the tax cut fight, which will have larger and far more immediate economic payoffs to working Americans than anything even a brilliant tariff policy can deliver. If the tax cuts don't get locked in soon, stagflation could even return to Biden levels, especially with tariff confusion leaving many businesses too confused to take bold pro-growth risks. And too much embarrassing chaos on the tariff front could derail the larger agenda, even as the Senate takes key votes to move the, quote, big, beautiful bill along. The president needs to take stock of his overall team and make sure they're working to land this plane and not crash it into the side of a fiscal mountain. The midterm elections are just 19 months off. If the economy is rolling along soon, it'll go well for Republicans. If not, it'll be hail Speaker Jeffries and back to gridlock and stagnation. Do you think it'll be Jeffries, though? That's interesting. A lot of pushback on Jeffries right now. The Telegraph out of the United Kingdom suggests that Trump's trade war will only have losers. And the biggest loser may be Trump. What happens if his tariffs don't work? So this whole piece, again, from the Telegraph out of the United Kingdom, they say, but their fate does not come into this at all. This is all about America, or in truth, all about Trump and his mission to save the industry heartland for which he hopes to go down in history. But if this phenomenally risky gambit fails, If the car workers of Detroit and the tech startups of the West Coast do not find that they have arrived in a brave new world of opportunity and affluence, and the world at large demands retribution, then what? They ask. Governor J.B. Pritzker, a Democrat from Illinois, who's a billionaire who believes that he's going to be the next president of the United States, was on none other than MSNBC. He said today, as well as yesterday, Trump basically shot the U.S. economy in the foot, and we're now all going to suffer from this. Here's what happened today in the markets. Business people, investors from around the world that invest in U.S. markets are basically pulling back and recognizing that the medium-term and long-term prospects for the United States under Donald Trump are worse than they have been in quite some time. So a 5% downdraft in the market in one day is just the beginning. They understand that there is likely to be a recession caused by Donald Trump, and that because of tariffs, taxes essentially are going up on ordinary Americans who keep this economy going. This is self-inflicted. This is not COVID. You know, Donald Trump did nothing to counteract COVID. And we saw what happened to the markets back then as a result. But this is Donald Trump literally causing COVID and bringing that to the markets with his tariffs. The tariffs are a tax on ordinary Americans, and they are like bringing COVID back. It's going to have a long-term effect on Americans. Now, Vice President... No, hold on. Let me take a step back. I was going to talk about J.D. Vance, but I wanted to go to billionaire investor Bill Ackman. He sent a clear message to world leaders hoping to strike a deal with the U.S. Don't wait too long. My advice to foreign leaders is that if you have not already reached out to President Trump, you need to do so immediately. Trump is, at his core, a deal maker who sees the world as a series of transactions. He characterized Trump as a tough but fair negotiator. He loves to make deals, and he loves to get things done properly and promptly. Ackman isn't the only one urging leaders to act quickly. Eric Trump, the president's son, said, I wouldn't want to be the last country that tries to negotiate a trade deal with Trump. The first to negotiate will win. The last will absolutely lose. I've seen this movie my entire life. And Peggy Noonan writes a piece, and we're not going to talk about tariffs, all morning. As a matter of fact, this is the last quick piece I have before we take a break, and then we read your comments. But Peggy Noonan says, Canada, our dear friend, deserves better than this. From D-Day to Iran and back, we've always been able to count on the loyalty of the ally to the north. She goes on to give the history of Canada and our friendship with them. We are not bringing our friends close and our enemies closer. Too bad when the world looks more and more like a mob war every day. We won't come away from this new time looking stronger and more commanding, but dumber and weaker. Less like the Don, more like Fredo. Okay. We can continue to talk about terrorists if you want. Not much to update on, really. Much of the same hyperventilating from the media. They see this as a prime opportunity to go after Trump, to attack Trump. They've been looking for this since Inauguration Day because the Democrats have done such a poor job of combating Trump. Though I see the media is trying to now prop up Cory Booker and say how amazing it was what he did. Again, to me, it symbolizes really the problem in the Democrat Party right now, which is a lot of bluster, but nothing accomplished at the end of the day. And I think that's why Democrats are upset with their own party and why their approval numbers are so dismal, and why they've had this resistance where literally their phrase is do something, telling their representatives and their own party to do something. It's why Chuck Schumer had to cancel his book tour, because not of protests from the right, but protests from his own party. But we're going to read your comments when we come back. Got to take a short break. A little bit about Cory Booker here. We definitely have to get to New York State issues. We also have a couple things here about the Democrat Party in general. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. Just a word to the wise, writes this viewer. Right now is the perfect time to buy in the market. Buy low, sell high, same as always. Don't run scared. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Happy Friday. Well, happy Friday to you. Climate Fact Friday from Bob. Oh, hey, Bob. All right, it's Climate Fact Friday, folks. Buckle in. I read an article from NOAA about their assessment of our 2025 winter season. Remember they said the winter was going to be warmer and wetter than last winter because of climate change? Long story short, they were wrong. We had record cold across the United States. As I got to the end of the article, they concluded that, quote, winter was just winter, end quote, and climate change was not the cause. There is hope for truth in a government agency after all. Thank you, Bob. I always appreciate the Climate Fact Friday. All right, I have to mention this just quickly. It's by Isaac Shore. Do we have time? Yeah. Isaac Shore writes at the New York Post, saying Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's statement pierced the air of Congress's upper chamber Tuesday night, saying, "Do you know you have just broken the record?" He told Cory Booker, "Do you know how proud this caucus is of you? Do you know how proud America is of you?" Chuck Schumer's applause came as the Democrat Party's official X account hailed Booker for achieving the longest filibuster in Senate history. And we talked about this throughout the week. Chuck Schumer trying to hold on to his leadership position. Cory Booker trying to be the face of the leadership and look as if they're doing something. But again, I think this is symbolic, really, of where the Democrat Party is, not accomplishing anything, but saying a lot. Continuing, Isaac Shore calls it a phony buster. Booker's 25-hour bloviation didn't really qualify because he wasn't droning on to block a particular piece of legislation. But if the Democrats did think Booker was wielding that procedural tool, what business exactly did they have celebrating it? Considering, this is such a great point, their own past crusade to destroy the filibuster. Just months ago, much of Schumer's proud caucus and other top Democrats stood united behind a brazen lie as part of an effort to do away with the filibuster and push through their unpopular agenda. As early as July of 2020, Barack Obama was calling on the Senate to ditch the, quote, Jim Crow relic, end quote. In 2022, Schumer pressured his colleagues to do just that while accusing the GOP of trying to implement state-level, quote, voter suppression laws. And in 2024, when he naively believed that Democrats might sweep the upcoming federal election, Schumer started fantasizing again about eliminating the venerable Senate rule, allowing a minority of members to halt the body's business. The media, as a matter of course, dutifully repeated the partisan talking point. Vox offered to explain the legislative hurdle's racist history. The Associated Press reported that its racist past was fueling arguments for its end. The Atlantic went so far as to call the filibuster a monument to white supremacy. That hasn't kept Senate Democrats from wielding the filibuster to block legislation, including a bill barring trans athletes from women's sports, now that Donald Trump is back in the White House. And there's the minority leader, the minority leader was on Tuesday, showering Booker with praise for his so-called filibuster. The Democrat playbook is as tedious as it is deceptive. In any and every situation, Democrats mash every button they can conceive of with no regard for intellectual consistency or honesty. When they're in the majority, they claim the broadest possible mandate and seek to strip the Republicans of all protections. When they're in the minority, they play the part of righteous rebels and cling to those same protections. This maximalist approach, slash and burn politics, as it were, results in no shortage of embarrassment. We saw two such examples on Tuesday alone. First came Schumer's backpedaling on the formerly Jim Crow filibuster. Then came progressive voters' embrace of what Democrats have habitually characterized as Jim Crow in the 21st century, which is voter ID. In Wisconsin, even as the Democrat state Supreme Court candidate prevailed over the Republicans' choice, the same exact electorate also enshrined a voter ID requirement into the state constitution by an overwhelming margin of more than 25 points. Even that understates the support of such laws nationally. A Pew Research poll from January found that 81% of Americans, including 69% of Democrats, support such a requirement for all voters. That's despite a years-long campaign to smear Republicans for trying to carry out the public's wish to see this common sense policy implemented. In a series of high-profile addresses during his presidency, Joe Biden accused red state governments of disenfranchising their citizens, saying, quote, "The 21st century Jim Crow assault is real. It's unrelenting." That's what Biden said in 2021. A few months later, as he pushed a federal elections takeover that would have neutered immensely popular state voter ID laws, he compared Republicans and even a pair of fellow Democrats to the likes of Bull Connor, George Wallace, and Confederate President Jefferson Davis. When even some Democrats balked at his reckless rhetoric, Biden doubled down. "I did not say that we were going to be a George Wallace or a Bull Connor. I said we're going to have a decision in history that is going to be marked just like it was then. You don't get to vote this way and then somehow it goes away. This will stick with you the rest of your career and long after you're gone." A bold but erroneous prediction. What will stick instead is the shame of the many lies Biden told so freely from his powerful bully pulpit. What's even more noteworthy, though, is that they were all for naught. Biden's hysterical denunciation of Jim Crow voter ID laws fell as flat with the public as his predecessors' overwrought criticism of the Jim Crow filibuster. Just as the effort to astroturf the appearance of grassroots enthusiasm for Booker's act will fail. No, the TikTok videos and memes don't mean the Democrats are back, no matter how much the media tells you that. No, Frank Luntz, Booker hasn't changed the course of political history. Yes, Frank Luntz said that Booker changed the course of political history. The party's stunts are only slightly less counterproductive than its smears. Democrats remain in the wilderness because Americans see their cynical acts for the contemptuous farce they are. I thought that was a great piece by Isaac Shore. We got to take a break. Now I'm running late. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on this Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. Coming up in the next hour, right around 7:10, we're going to hear from GorillaBots, a robotic team here in our area. High schoolers that are going to the World Championship. We're going to find out all about robotics and what that entails. Comment from a viewer. Yada, yada, yada from the media. Canada is our friend. But do your friends rip you off and get away with it? Thank you very much for that comment. Yes, Saturday, as I had mentioned, boy, there's a couple of stories I want to get to. My goodness. I do want to talk about we'll probably talk about the New York State budget in the beginning of the next hour. Now, I can't even get into any story. We are out of time for this hour, and I don't want to run late. So keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. If you're new to the program, you see the number on the bottom of the screen. You can reach out at any time, comment on the topics of the day or anything that you want to comment on. You can also send in a wave emoji or just say wave. And that's what that wave count is. It's either in-person waves of people walking by here on Market Street, or it is people who send emojis. We had a lot this week. A little slower this morning. That's okay. But we had a lot of comments this week and a lot of waves this week. So I do appreciate it. And we love, that's the biggest part of the show is the community engagement. And that's why as we near, well, not near, but this year is a very heavy local election year. We're going to have every candidate on that we possibly can, so you know exactly what you're voting for before you go into the booth. We'll try to get as many of because there's quite a few primaries happening locally. We'll get those candidates on as well. But petition season wrapping up yesterday. And so now the fun begins. All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. It's our bare bones studio there. We get new carpet put in. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Proudly broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Coming up in just a few moments, GorillaBots, the robotic team from Corning, Elmira, and Horseheads High Schools. We're going to hear what that means as they head to the World Championship in Houston, Texas. First off, as a kind of a more informative dive into what we had glanced over at the beginning of the program, a nationwide anti-President Trump movement is hitting the ground on Saturday. It's called Hands off. It is expected to be the largest single-day protest since he entered office, which is interesting because there's been quite a few protests. Some have led, of course, to the violence and the destruction at the Tesla dealerships. But there's been a protest, and it's anecdotal, but just focusing here on Corning, where the headquarters is based, the Hesselson studio. There's been protests at least once a week, and I think the goal was, what I heard on the ground, is the goal was to have one protest on like a weekend once a month at least. But this is happening on Saturday. The Trump administration's wide-reaching and ground-shaking policies have mobilized a varied cross-section of Americans affected by political, economic, social, and legal changes. This coming from Axios, far-left Axios. The website for Hands Off says this is not just corruption. This is not just mismanagement. This is a hostile takeover. Now, more than 1,100 rallies, visibility events, and meetings were scheduled in all 50 states as of Wednesday afternoon. Let me ask you, because I know we have quite a few Democrats that watch this program and send in great comments, and we appreciate that. How do you find out about all these protests? Because this isn't the same group that did the protests last month. So how just social media, I guess, that the Hands Off organization is discovered and it leads to 1,100 rallies. I don't know what visibility events are. I've got to be honest. I guess maybe a rally would involve speakers and a visibility event would just be like marching down the street with signs. Call me naive. I don't know what a visibility event is. Organizers said they had nearly 250,000 RSVPs as of March 29th. Protesters are rallying against several Trump administration policies, including, and this is what we talk about, the misleading media, misleading Democrat Party trying to scare you, the handling of Social Security benefits, layoffs across the federal workforce, that one's true, attacks on consumer protections and anti-immigrant policies, and attacks on transgender people. What are the attacks? That's a very loaded, biased word, isn't it? Attacks on transgender people. Wow, that is a biased way of putting that. Just keeping women's sports as women's sports, which is, a matter of fact, even Meghan McCain, who I know on paper is Republican, much like her father, but very often goes against kind of the Republican ideals. She has a piece out at the New York Post today, and I don't mean to get on a tangent here. We'll get back to the protest in a moment. That says, I don't care if I lose friends, I'm standing up for women-only sports. And it's a op-ed from Meghan McCain. You can find that for yourself at the New York Post. But she said, this is an issue of equality. I'm not hedging. I will not buck to societal pressure, and I will not move. To everyone who fights alongside me on the issue, I thank you for your bravery. But anyway, so this protest on Saturday, the hands-off protest, something about Social Security benefits, which what has changed? What Donald Trump has made it very clear, and Elon Musk, that they are not changing Social Security in any way. They're just streamlining it. That, as Musk said the other day, you're going to get more benefits. But, of course, that will not be reported when that happens. Layoffs across the federal workforce, that is accurate. We're seeing more and more of those numbers. So if that upsets people, attacks on consumer protections, and this is important, anti-immigrant policies. So I don't know if these people who are protesting on Saturday are in support of Biden's open borders, but of course, that's no longer the law of the land. The protests are also against Elon Musk's involvement in the federal government via Doge, after he's already faced a wave of demonstration at Tesla dealerships worldwide via the Tesla takedown movement. Demonstrations, maybe not a strong enough word, as we've seen the Molotov cocktails and the firebombing of these Tesla dealerships. Now, the hands-off demonstrations will occur at state capitals, federal buildings, congressional offices, and city centers. I find that interesting that they hold these protests on Saturdays when congressional offices and city centers and federal buildings are closed. I guess it's more about the optics, obviously. Dozens of advocacy organizations are partnering to support Saturday's actions, including the Center for LGBTQ Economic Advancement and Research, Declaration for American Democracy, the Human Rights Campaign, Indivisible, and Planned Parenthood. This is a nationwide mobilization to stop the most brazen power grab in modern history, the movement's website said. Trump, Musk, and their billionaire cronies are orchestrating an all-out assault on our government, our economy, and our basic rights, enabled by Congress every step of the way. The movement is hosting a virtual safety and de-escalation training on Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m., so that already happened. You missed that. A virtual meeting with nearly 35,000 people on Tuesday, recorded for posterity, gave general information on the protests and the Trump administration. Whether they get away with any particular effort doesn't matter as much as the message that they are sending so loud and so clear, which is sowing fear, sowing the feeling of powerlessness, said ACLU's chief political and advocacy officer. I guess that means the Trump administration. Doesn't matter if they accomplish anything. It's about the message they're sending, okay? So there you are. If you're going to attend, we would love to hear how it goes. I don't know if there's one locally. I can look that up during the break and get back to you. But we do have our friends from GorillaBots coming up in just about 3 minutes here. But because of these protests, the hands-off anti-Trump protests, the White House has forced to reschedule their Saturday opening, I guess you would say. This decision has been made out of an abundance of caution and to ensure the safety of all within proximity to public demonstrations planned near the White House on Saturday. Saturday tour tickets will be honored on Sunday between 10 a.m. and 2:30 p.m., regardless of their original time slot, according to the First Lady's announcement. Sunday ticket holders should plan to attend at their scheduled time. The White House announced this year's spring tour on March 7th. They're free and open to the public, but require tickets. So if you are going to attend the hands-off protest, I would love to hear from you. That is just an update from what we were telling you. Speaking of protests, this is not a protest, but I have had so many people reaching out on this program, and I thank you so much, but about NYSEG. And we know there was that forum, not a town hall, held by NYSEG in Big Flats. Well, Steuben County Chair, our friend on Frankly Speaking, Kelly Fitzpatrick, announced a community connection event. That's what they call it at NYSEG, a community connection event for NYSEG customers in Steuben County, and it's going to be Tuesday. Mark your calendar. I know I should have given you a little heads up, a little warning. It's Tuesday, April 16th from 4 till 7 p.m. at the Campbell Fire Department. Now, NYSEG always notes that the event is not a town hall, and it will not include a formal presentation. Instead, it is I think there's an error there. It is the 16th, but that's a Wednesday. Excuse me. I saw a correction coming in. It is Wednesday, the 16th. We'll get you more information on that, but it's from 4 to 7 at the Campbell Fire Department. I know many people have been speaking out about NYSEG, so that gives you an opportunity. Again, not as a town hall, but gives you an opportunity to express your concerns or find out more about the budgeting process and the cost from NYSEG representatives. So thank you to Kelly Fitzpatrick for sending that along. All right, we got to take a short break. When we come back, I'm excited about this. I think you're going to have a blast with this. It's our friends, our new friends, and in full disclosure, we recorded it yesterday. I'm not going to make a quick costume change. We did record it yesterday because they have a lot to prepare for as they head to the World Championship in Houston, Texas. So we're going to find out all about GorillaBots Team 5485 and find out how we can help them on their journey to becoming world champions. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting in the Hesselson studio, and in that studio this morning is the GorillaBots Team 5485. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Of course, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much.
We're going to talk about the World Championship in just a moment. But first, could you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Nia. I go to Horseheads High School. I'm a documentator on the team, and this is my first year.
I'm Mark. I go to Horseheads High School. It's my third year on the team, and I'm the lead designer.
I'm Matthew. This is my first year on the team. I go to Cornered Painted Post High School, and I'm a builder on the team.
My name is Lydia. This is my third year. I'm a heads of documentation and outreach, and I am going to Corning.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I'm currently in Corning Painted High School, and I'm an understudying programmer.
I'm Kaylee. I go to Corning Painted Post High School. I'm a programmer, and this is my third year on the team.
Well, great. As we mentioned, you were, and thank you for that. That was smooth, by the way. So you're headed to the 2025 World Championship in Houston. Before we talk about that, for those that aren't familiar with robotics, I think many people are thinking it's like the robots fighting each other, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the first thing you get. So tell us, what is the robotics that you take part in?
Yeah.
Anyone can answer.
I think conceptually, it's similar. It's not like we're fighting each other. I think a big concept in the first program is gracious professionalism. So we all want to be professional and we're all getting along with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not exactly like battle bots or anything like that.
Right.
But we do have 2 alliances on each team, one for blue and one for red. There are 2 teams on each alliance, and each of them have robots that they have programmed and built over the season. The game starts with a 30-second autonomous period where there's a pre-programmed scoring period where the program runs for each of the 4 robots, and they try to score as much as they can in that period. Next is the 2-minute tally-up process, which is kind of divided into 1 minute and 30 seconds of like regular gameplay and then 30 seconds of end game. Okay. So in this period, it's driver controlled. So we have 2 drivers from each team who are driving the robot manually, and through that they're able to score as many times as possible. And in end game, it's specifically called that because you can score extra additional points by like little bonus things. Mark, do you want to talk about this season's specific challenge?
Yeah, so this year we have like little blocks we call samples.
Okay.
So one task is you can take them from the big box in the center, and then there's a basket about 4 or 5 feet up. I think it's 4 feet.
Okay.
But you have to deposit it into the high basket. Or you could take one of those blocks to the human player on the other side of the field, and they'll convert it to a specimen. So they'll have a little like clip that they can put on it. So then you can hang it on a bar in the center.
So there actually is scoring. It's not judging. This isn't based on a judge's score. Oh, interesting.
So
Yeah.
a little more than just like the robot. We do have a separate like judges interview where we prepare a 5-minute presentation and also like 5-minute questioning, which is how they decide awards, along with a 15-page portfolio, which is what me and Nia are in charge of, is creating that for judges to get kind of an idea of what our season process was like. Because they're not just interested in the final product, they're also interested in how you got there. So that kind of entails like a breakdown of the robot parts along with the design process and the different outreach events. A different important part of the first program is outreach to different communities, like ours specifically. So we've done a lot of outreach actually, both in our local community and also internationally as well.
Oh, wow. How many people, well, first of all, when you said 4 or 5 feet, I don't know anything about programming, but you should probably find out if it's 4 or 5 feet before you go to the championship.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. But do you guys all work well together? Is it a well-formed team?
Yeah, I definitely say so. Something we like to emphasize on our team is open communication, meaning everyone on our team gets an equal say in any decision we make. So we all gather as a team together to talk about each big decision. Like if we're going to change the robot in a way, we all like have a specific vote. So like we all tally the votes. There's no person has a higher vote than the other. It's all equally. We all communicate through a Slack actually, so everyone gets an update on how the day or how each meeting goes and a little update every single time.
So is it called, so is a meeting, it's not like a practice? Would you consider it a practice?
I mean, I'd say probably more of a meeting. I mean, there's definitely like driver practice involved with those meetings, but we do so much more than just like robot stuff on every meeting. So I think I'd probably call it more of a meeting.
How long is one of the meetings?
2 hours and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's pretty long.
You knew that quickly. That seems like a long time. What is a typical practice or meeting like?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, sure. So in the beginning of the meeting, we usually gather around in like one table and we talk about the agenda we wanted to achieve, like in this meeting, specifically in this meeting, and like the future, like what we want to do in the future, where are we heading to. And also after the meeting, we just like start to do our own things. Like Lydia, she started to do the documentation, and and like those two, they're builders. So they started build robot, and like me and Kaylee, we're the programmers, so we just started program. And at the end of the meeting, we gather around again, and we start to like check if we achieved this agenda, or did we still have to working on some parts. And I would say that's part of the way we communicate with each other.
Yeah.
What is it like at that first meeting and you start this process and compared to what it looks like at the final when you go to the World Championship?
Mark, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so our first meeting is a lot more brainstorming.
Okay.
So that's right after we get the season reveal, so we just learned what the game is. So we'll split off into multiple groups to like brainstorm ideas for our design,
Yeah, sure.
whether it be the entire robot or just like a small component of it.
Okay.
From there, we'll like evaluate if we think we should go with it based off of a set list of criteria.
Okay.
Versus right now, it's more of trying to find anything we can improve.
Oh, okay.
So after every competition, we always like to continue to iterate on our design. So yeah.
How much would you say it's changed then, like throughout the whole, like compared to what you first came up with at that first meeting or that first couple weeks, compared to what you're bringing to the 2025 World Championship in Houston?
Considerably
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not, at this point, you're not making changes. You're just tweaking to make it better.
Yeah.
Wow. This is very interesting. I do want to make a programming note. As people watching can hear in the background, there's a lot of carpentry being done here. So I apologize. There is a lot of background noise, but I know that's happening. It's not a technical glitch. So let's talk about the championship for a moment. Are you guys ready? Are you planning for the event?
Yeah, there's a lot of preparation that goes into the world. Like, it's not just like you qualify, you get to go. There's a whole thing with like the hotels, the extra expensive, all the food. I think a lot of the parents have been able to step up and take control of those things. So we, the kids, don't really have to worry as much, which is really great. I think definitely the documentation team had a little bit on their hands we also designed 4 different clothings we wanted to wear for Worlds because it's going to be over 4 days. So we wanted to appear like in all different kinds of things. So we just finalized all our merch. And I think the parents have definitely been active in trying to book us all the hotels, the plane tickets, and all the other expenses. But yeah, all of them have been such great helps, and we're so glad that our parents are here to support us all.
What do you think it's going to be like, anyone, that night before? I haven't asked you a question. The night before the big day. I know it's a 4-day event, but the night before. What do you think?
I think it's definitely going to be really hectic and exciting, double checking all our packing lists, because once we're there, we really need everything to succeed. And there's lots of different tools for the maintenance of the robot and all our computers and charging cords and all the vital things to make sure that we can compete at our best.
And I'm guessing some of this is very specialized, that you can't just go to the Walgreens and pick up some of the tools, right? What about the nerves of getting your robot to, how's it getting there?
Yeah, actually, they're driving the robot
that
down
makes
to
sense.
Texas, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I thought maybe you'd have it buckled in by another seat on the airplane, something like that. Is there anything else? And I'll ask each of you, not just the World Championship, you're going to be focused on that, but is there anything about Houston you're looking forward to the most? Let's start with you.
Kind of like just visiting around just Houston.
Yeah.
I'm going a couple days before. I'm going visiting family.
Oh, that's nice.
And I just want to go there and meet all the teams.
Yeah.
Because they're from around the world.
You figure you're going to make friends. You all have the same interest.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to the most?
The weather.
The weather.
It's going to be so nice.
That's true.
I actually grew up in Texas,
Oh.
and I'm looking forward to meeting some old friends because I grew up around the Houston area.
Oh, so this is an old hat for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, the barbecue is what I'm
Oh,
looking forward
fair,
to.
fair enough.
No, that's actually so true. I'm actually really looking forward to the food because
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things I've always lived here, so I'm kind of used to all the food now. So I'm really excited for a new change of pace in Houston.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've never been to Texas before, so it's gonna be a brand new experience for me.
Yeah, with your friends. That's so neat.
No, I've got family down there too, so I'm excited for that.
What a mixed bag here that we have. That's really neat. Will people that are watching this interview, will they be able to follow along with your progress?
Yeah, so we're actually going to have, there's definitely going to be a live stream going on for YouTube. This is a pretty big event, so I think if they just look up First World Championship 2025 Robotics, they should definitely be able to find some kind of YouTube live stream for sure. And if you check out our Instagram as well, we're also probably going to have some kind of post or some kind of update about how's it going for us as well.
I meant to ask this question at the very beginning, and that was my fault for not. Where did the name come from, GorillaBots Team 5485?
It actually comes from our biggest sponsor, Corning Incorporated. So they're most well known for their product Gorilla Glass, which is why we are called the GorillaBots, which is named after their best product.
What a segue. I didn't even know, because this is perfect. I was going to ask you about people who want to donate and sponsors. We want to make sure we hit your sponsors, but before that, how can people help you? Because this isn't free. There's a cost obviously involved to this. Where should they go to help?
I think any little amount helps us with everything, really. We actually have a GoFundMe account, so if you just look up GoFundMe GorillaBots, you should probably be able to find that as well.
Okay.
But yeah.
And there's different levels of sponsors, and it'll make you feel special, everybody watching, if you can help out this team and help them have a great time at the 2025 World Championship. Not too many times you can say you're talking to future world champions. This is very exciting. I'm a little nervous. So let me ask, just to finish up here, first your sponsors. Let's talk about your sponsors who you have already. You mentioned Corning Incorporated, of course.
We also have Guthrie, the Associated Radiologist of the Finger Lakes, BC, along with the Chemung Supply and Ian, as well as Guthrie & Co. CPA and World Treatment Travel. So we're all really thankful to all our sponsors for getting us here, actually. But again, we'd be so grateful to any small amount by anyone. We do have different levels of sponsorship as well that give you different benefits as kind of a way for us to return our gratitude back to you. We have, I think, like 100, 250, and then 1,000. Oh, sorry, 250, 500, and then like 1,000 plus. So all those comes with benefits like bronze, silver, and gold. I think the gold being we actually put your name on the back of our shirt, which we're going to wear on our final day at the World Championship.
Oh, like a boxer who comes out in a robe with a name on it? Oh, that's really cool. All right, before we go, is this something, when you look at your future, you're young, you're going to go into some type of occupation. Is this something, a STEM, I guess is what it would be called, right? An occupation you're looking into? We'll start with you.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. Maybe this wasn't a great question.
Yeah, I'm looking into mechanical modeling or engineering.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
So is this just a yes across the board?
I mean, because even though robotics is a lot about like building robots, it's also definitely taught us a lot of life skills. Like me and Nia aren't really technical people, like we're not programmers or builders, but I think it's definitely teaching us the values of like teamwork and communication as well.
Well, I want to thank you for giving me so much time. I want to, of course, wish you the best of luck, okay? And also, you've got to make me a deal. If you come back world champion, you'll come back on the show? You won't forget about me?
Definitely.
I promise? Yeah. Okay, safe travels. Thanks, guys.
So much. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much to GorillaBots. It was fun to hear about that as they head to the World Championship in Houston, Texas. I want to put on the screen here for just a moment the way that you can help donate to their team. You can find out more about their team there. What I did learn as I was talking to them off the air, there is 8,500 robotics teams worldwide. 8,500. And just 256 get an invitation to the World Championship. Though they figure that over 50,000 people will be in Houston, Texas for this event. Houston making out good in that deal. But that, if you scan that QR code with your phone right now, you can go to their GoFundMe page to help them on their trip to Houston, Texas. So thank you again to the GorillaBots. I thought that was a fun interview, and I'm glad that they could make it before, as they're busy planning their trip. Okay, let's talk about the New York State budget for a moment. Yesterday, Assembly Minority Leader Will Barclay released a statement because yesterday there was a second budget extender that was passed because the New York State budget really no closer to being finished, and we'll hear what Governor Hochul has to say about that. But Will Barclay said, in case New Yorkers need another reminder of how dysfunctional the state budget process is, today's second extender offered more proof. With the April 1st deadline now a distant memory, New York's spending plan will be at least a week late with no end in sight. The final state spending plan will be in excess of $252 billion and represents some of the most important work conducted by the legislature. The persistent lack of timely action, sense of urgency, and transparency is unacceptable. And we received a statement from our good friend, John Buckley, the mayor of Hornell, who was on this program not that long ago. John Buckley says, we passed our budget on time here in Hornell, as it is the responsible thing to do. Now we wait once again as the state budget process continues on, seemingly without an end in sight. This is very frustrating, considering municipalities like Hornell rely on many state funding streams, such as AIM and CHIPS, and are left to wonder if what we budgeted for will ultimately be included in the final version of the state budget. Now, Hochul has said she's not hung up on the budget deadline. I'm going to continue the process until it's done, refusing to delve into the specifics of, and if you're not familiar, this is done with the three people in a room process of negotiating, but the closed-door negotiations. She urged New Yorkers to be patient as the process unfolds, telling reporters that summers are nice here too. That's what she said. That summers are nice here too. That we could be seeing a budget that lasts into this summer, a budget process, that lasts into the summer. If I was hung up on the deadline, we would not have the budget that I believe in my heart is the best budget for the people of New York. We're still talking, said Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie. I feel like we're spinning our wheels on discovery. Now, the only difference is that Hastie said specific language is being exchanged between the three parties on top priorities like changes to the state's discovery laws or how evidence is shared with the defense. We had not gotten language for a couple of days. Since then, there has been a constant exchange of language back and forth. So you've got the three people negotiating this a quarter of a trillion dollar budget with three people working behind closed doors. But Governor Hochul suggesting, you know what, it's nice in the summer in Albany, so we could be looking at a process lasting into the summer. Summers are nice here. And this is in talks of the $252 billion spending plan. I'm not in a rush. I'm truly not in any rush, Hochul said. You won't have to wait forever, but summers are nice here too. Wow. Now, what we are learning, according to the New York Post, is that the state Senate is trying to kill Governor Hochul's last-minute push to crack down on masked protests. Now, we have talked about this on the program extensively, that the idea is, and this came really because of numerous examples, whether it's on college campuses or on the streets of New York City, where people were using masks to intimidate Jewish residents, the Jewish community. Governor Hochul remaining quiet on it for quite some time and then threw it in the budget at the last moment. Well, some of the lawmakers, because remember, Albany is far left and it's one-party rule, are worried about protecting protesters' ability to rally while shielding their identities following the recent high-profile arrests by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement of anti-Israel college demonstrators. So they're using the excuse as a way to try to attack Trump and ICE, saying that they don't want the mask ban because of ICE deportations. It's dead unless she forces it, one state senator said of Hochul and her proposal. And the problem with that, of course, is that historically Governor Hochul loses her spine, her backbone, pretty easily to the far left in Albany, where she doesn't really have the fight in her. The only fight she seems to have is for congestion pricing, making sure that New Yorkers get that tax that they want and deserve, if you listen to her say it, and of course, standing strong against our hardworking men and women in corrections who have the audacity to speak out about the safety issues, the real safety issues in the prisons. Hochul wants to create an increased penalty for harassment when someone purposely hides their face while menacing or threatening violence against a group of people. The governor, however, had been largely silent on the issue, as we mentioned. Imagine being on the side that says, no, we want masks for these protesters, anti-Israel, anti-American protesters who want to intimidate Jewish students or Jewish residents. We think it's in their right to have this face covering. Now, some have compared the law to what was done with the Ku Klux Klan and their hoods, so there is precedent for this. But lawmakers in Albany saying that they don't want the mask ban. The governor has been largely silent, like I said, on the issue. Hochul tried to slide the issue behind closed doors during budget negotiations with legislators last month. Proponents, such as the NAACP and the Anti-Defamation League, say it would help cut down on anti-Semitic thugs threatening and calling for violence against Jewish communities. Some opponents argue it would lead to indiscriminate policing and have a chilling effect for protesters. Heaven forbid, a chilling effect on protesters while they destroy buildings, while they violently attack Jewish students and residents. State Senator James Scoffus sponsors the bill. He told the Post that the word of the proposal's death has been largely exaggerated. He said it's still a live bill. If we can get the lion's share of this proposal, I'd happily support the lion's share of the proposal getting into the final budget. I've always been I've always been opposed to people using masks to harass other people and threaten them and to be intimidating or to harm them. That position has not changed regardless of who the occupant of the White House is, said Governor Hochul. And that kind of ties in with what is happening on college campuses. Did you see, and we're going to talk more about the budget, but to get on a little bit of a side tangent before we take a break. No, we'll get on that side tangent after we take a break, and I see some comments coming in. Keep them coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this quick commercial break. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. As I said, we're going to go on a little side tangent here because right now the mask restrictions, the mask ban is looking to be up in the air of whether or not that'll be a part of the budget. The budget, of course, an ongoing process. They passed the second budget extender yesterday. So that's still up in the air, and we know that Governor Hochul historically has not had much fight in her for certain issues. But that ties in with the anti-Semitism on college campuses. The Trump administration is freezing $510 million in federal funding to Brown University. The administration intends to withhold the $510 million in federal funding to Brown University while it reviews the Ivy League school's response to alleged cases of anti-Semitism on campus, as well as the institution's diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Brown University Provost Frank Doyle told faculty and staff in an email that he was aware of the troubling rumors emerging about federal action on Brown research grants, but that he had no information to substantiate a potential imminent funding pause. This being reported by the New York Post. The Rhode Island school was one of 60 colleges and universities that the Department of Education's civil rights arm warned earlier this month could have federal funding taken away over alleged anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment on campus. Also, we learned that the Trump administration is demanding changes as well at Harvard University. Harvard University received a letter from a federal task force on Thursday outlining policy demands tied to nearly, are you ready for this, $9 billion in federal funding. $9 billion. Harvard received the letter from the federal task force this afternoon, a spokesperson said. Among the demands outlined in the letter are the elimination of Harvard's DEI programs and a ban on masks at campus protests. The demands also included full cooperation with the Department of Homeland Security, which enforces immigration policy, and federal regulators to ensure full compliance, according to a copy of the letter obtained by the Crimson, which is Harvard's school newspaper. The letter was received days after the Department of Education, Health and Human Services, and the U.S. General Services Administration announced that they are reviewing $8.7 billion in grants and more than $225 million worth of contracts between Harvard, its affiliates, and the federal government. So again, this being reported by CNN, $9 billion in federal funding now up in the air if Harvard does not make some serious changes. Okay, back to New York. One other thing about Governor Hochul. Being reported that Governor Hochul made an announcement on yesterday, about, quote, gun violence prevention. During the conference, Hochul signed 3, again, this is their term, not ours, gun prevention bills into law. The first bill adds penalties for using pistol converters, which are rapid-fire modification devices that can be attached to semi-automatic pistols. The second bill strengthens the warnings that gun dealers must provide to customers about the risk of firearms. The information would warn about the dangers of gun ownership, including increased risk of suicide, death during domestic disputes, and the unintentional death of children, household members, and others. And finally, the third bill, the gun control bill that Governor Hochul signed into law yesterday. The third bill requires credit card companies to use the merchant category code for firearms and ammunition retailers. Hochul said this will give law enforcement information on who may be stockpiling ammunition. Now, last I knew, there's nothing illegal about stockpiling ammunition, but this is Governor Hochul's way of tracking, apparently, that quote-unquote stockpiling. Now, as is normally the case, to use Carl Hasty's term, the death is in the details. What exactly constitutes a stockpile. So again, I want to quote that. Hochul said this will give law enforcement information on who may be stockpiling information. Governor Hochul saying we're taking action to drive down gun violence in the state of New York, protecting our communities and making our streets safer. Public safety is my number one priority, and by giving law enforcement additional tools to stop gun violence in its tracks, we're building on our promise to put the safety of New Yorkers first. So we know that public safety is not her number one priority. She's made that crystal clear with the support of bail reform, the HALT Act, et cetera, et cetera. But to say that now she wants to help law enforcement too, as the state, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, that the state has done everything it can to tie the hands of our law enforcement officers. But in this instance, she wants to give law enforcement the information, again, on who may be, quote, stockpiling ammunition. Now, this piece has no clear definition of what stockpiling is. But the law enforcement in New York will track you and your ammunition purchases to see, I guess, even though it's completely legal, apparently Governor Hochul believes that there's some danger to you having more than a certain amount of ammunition in your home or on your person. Just giving you the news, folks, coming from Albany. And again, Governor Hochul saying that public safety is, quote, my number one priority. I would ask the corrections officers if they believe that. I would also ask our law enforcement officers if they believe that. Now, do we have to take another break already? I do have a couple, speaking of that, updates on the Democrat Party. We know Governor Hochul has tried for a long time to be kind of a face of the Democrat Party, kind of a power broker. She does not have it. We see really the dismal failure she's been when she tries to even give a speech at the DNC, but she's tried to be someone of importance in the Democrat Party, but just does not have that skill set. So that's how I'm going to make the segue over to the Democrat Party, which we are going to talk about here when we come back from break. We're going to read some of your comments, a couple of comments from after the last break. I just realized that I forgot to read at the top of this segment. Hochul better hope she doesn't make Trump mad because New York State will not be getting federal funds. Yeah, and if you look at how much of this budget is dependent on federal funding, and then the stance she's taking, she's put herself in a precarious situation. I would agree with you, viewer. Another viewer says, summertime is better in California, Miss Hochul. Go and govern their state. You would fit right in with Newsom. Yes, she would fit in. Well, I would say the only difference is Newsom misleading voters right now, but trying to portray himself as more moderate, which is laughable, as you know. But at least he is saying things. He's not doing things, but saying things that make him look more moderate than Hochul. But we got to take a break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And as promised, we're going to talk about the Democrat Party for just a moment. Now, I would love to hear your opinion on this. This was on Hannity's program the other day, and I thought it piqued my interest when I saw it. Senator Markwayne Mullin, who's been making quite a name for himself lately, Republican from Oklahoma. He was talking about kind of the turmoil that is going on with the Democrat Party. And it is in such disarray that even Cory Booker giving a long speech, not technically a filibuster, giving that long speech is being praised by the media because they've had nothing else. But of course, at the end of the day, that accomplished nothing other than take up time and get some overtime numbers for Capitol staff and Capitol security. But Mullin was asked by Sean Hannity. Hannity said, it is amazing. They don't have a leader. The only leaders they really seem to be getting any attention, those are that are getting the most attention, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and I've got to be honest, Senator, I'm okay with that. That's, I guess, not really technically a question from Sean Hannity, but Mullin replied, well, that's funny you named three socialists. I mean, truly, three socialists. And so that tells you the disarray of the Democratic Party right now. It's amazing, though, because we all assumed Nancy Pelosi was the leader of the Democrat Party, and she was. Since she has left, they have completely fallen apart. I mean, Cory Booker, personally, I actually get along with him. Politically, we couldn't be more different. He spoke for 24 hours. I can't think of a single thing he said other than what you said. He ranted against Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Well, that's the same playbook that the Democrat party's had. Hakeem Jeffries isn't leading. That's true. Chuck Schumer isn't leading, and their poll numbers show it. 21% favorability across the United States with Democrat voters. That's about as low as it gets. He has a lot of pushback on Hakeem Jeffries as of late, and Chuck Schumer, of course, as we know. Their leadership position questioned, specifically Chuck Schumer, but Hakeem Jeffries has been extremely quiet, and that's what's led him, and many others have led to this Democrat Party's resistance mission statement, which is, quote, do something. They're speaking to their own party, quote, do something. And that's the part of that resistance that we talked about, which will be protesting on Saturday, the hands-off movement. I meant to look that up during break. I made during this next break to see if there is one locally. On top of that, we look at Kamala Harris, who kind of technically should be one of the leaders of the Democrat Party because she was the last presidential candidate. Her former top advisor was actually on The View yesterday. And I know since you don't watch that, I will fill you in on what she had to say. She was talking about with roughly 1 month ago until the November election. Harris famously told the liberal hosts on The View, or maybe she wasn't on The View, but she was talking about The View. She told the liberal hosts on The View that nothing comes to mind after she was asked to name something she would have done differently than Biden over the past 4 years. Remember that became a very famous response from Kamala Harris. I can't think of anything. Nothing comes to mind that she would have done different than Biden. Harris's senior campaign advisor, Stephanie Cutter, was floored at the response. And this actually wasn't on The View that she said this. This comes in the book that we've been talking about all week, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, that book coming out soon. She said, and I'm going to paraphrase here because I know we have a lot of kids that watch, "What the heck was that?" she recalled thinking. "That's not what we practiced." The gaffe became a moment that defined Harris's campaign. It provided the money shot for Trump's ad makers. The book quotes a Harris ally as saying, and it was her own bad moment. When she gave us the gift of the View interview, we were able to anchor her to the Biden administration in her own words, which is something we were trying to do anyway, one Trump advisor says in the book. Also, as we talk about the leaders of the Democrat Party, before we take our last break of today's edition, Democrat Jasmine Crockett, who is becoming one of the stars of the Democrat Party, for better or for worse, depending on which side you're on, remained silent as one of her aides attempted to intimidate and block reporters' questions about violence. Interesting. A reporter said, "What's your response to the Attorney General saying you're threatening lives with your rhetoric against Musk and Tesla?" Crockett, who was surrounded by aides and security personnel, did not answer the question, but an aide approached the reporter, getting right into the camera, prompting the reporter to ask, "Why are you in my face?" The aide saying, "I'm not. I'm just asking her a question. She's an elected member of Congress." "Congresswoman, do you see any condition to you saying you want to take down Musk, to the violence that's going on in the streets?" She would not respond, and her aide, her staffer, attempted to intimidate and block the reporter asking a fair question. So she'll fit right in as the leader of the Democrat Party. Last break. Get your last minute comments in so I can read them before the end of the program. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live and wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking here from the Hesselson studio. A couple comments from viewers. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Let's shoot some clay pigeons at the shooting range later. We only get 2 shots each so that we don't appear to be hoarding ammunition. Yes, thank you very much. I really want to know what the definition of stockpiling is. We'll try to do a little research on that. I've got a feeling it will be shockingly low. Comment from a different viewer. Next, it'll be illegal to even own a gun in New York State. Shame on you, Hochul. Well, they look at it with the pistol permit process and how difficult that is to discourage you from even beginning the process. They don't want you, and Governor Hochul proved it yesterday with that announcement. They don't want you to own a gun. A comment from a different viewer. Good luck to the GorillaBots. Love seeing our area represented. Me too. Thank you so much to the GorillaBots team who are going to the World Championship in robotics in Houston, Texas. We appreciate them being on the program this morning. Last couple quick things. Trump did unveil his $5 million gold card, which is for rich migrants. As you know, we talked about this in the past. It's called the $5 million gold card. His picture, of course, I think it comes as no surprise, on the gold card. For $5 million, this could be yours. That was the first of the cards. You know what that card is? It's the gold card, the Trump card. And it says United States of America, $5 million. The Trump card, it's got his signature and his face on it. And the face, I think, is his official presidential photo, but we all know that also looks very similar to his mugshot. Trump claimed that he was the first buyer, or claimed that he was the first buyer, but wasn't sure who the second buyer was, and explained that the card will be out in less than 2 weeks, probably. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick previously claimed last month that more than 1,000 gold cards have been sold and that over 37 million people globally have the means of buying one. Finally, the Senate released the GOP's blueprint for Trump's big, beautiful agenda, which includes tax cuts, border security, and more. Some of the things that the bill calls for: $150 billion in additional defense spending over a 10-year period, $175 billion in additional border security funding over a 10-year period, $21 billion for environmental and transportation committees to identify over a 10-year period. The list goes on and on, but we are out of time. Ken, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ken. I forgot to read your comment. Ken writes in, obviously the idea of proxy voting, specific to childbirth, is some that tugs at the heartstrings. But to have someone not fully engaged in the country's business for 3 months, but still putting in a vote through a proxy doesn't sound like a good plan. And I do agree with you. Unfortunately, if you give our politicians an opportunity to stay away from Washington and still vote, they will abuse it. I can envision the floor of the House filled with proxies with their phones to their ears, taking orders on how to vote. Proxy voting for the Dems is a push. They all have to vote the same way or they will be sanctioned by the party. I agree, Ken. Thank you for resetting that in. I'm sorry I missed it originally. You're exactly right. We saw that misuse at the tail end of COVID, where it was exactly that. People on their cell phones taking orders, just like I don't know whether the stock exchange or something, yelling. Finally, last weird story to end the program on. Easter eggs are so expensive, Americans are dying potatoes. If you're doing that, please send in a picture. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks again to the GorillaBots. We'll be back on Monday morning starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you bright and early, 6 a.m. on Monday. Look forward to it already. Have a great weekend.